Toxoids is out of the door, which means that it's time for the next patch. A patch that will stand alone and will not have an expansion attached to it, and it's 3.6 Orion. We've already talked about it a little bit in the past, specifically regarding the Ascension path changes, as well as the combat rebalance system, and the open beta, which is due to come around with this setup. What we haven't talked about, however, are the changes that are coming up to federations, as well as some other gameplay things. So, Spiritualist federations have been announced. Now, federations obviously were part of the Federation expansion. I personally don't use them all that much, mainly due to, well, let's put it this way, the subject system kind of overtaking it, but it's still really, really nice. Still, the Federation system will have a Spiritualist part of it, which means that we're going to see some extra content in that regard. But that's not what we're going to be talking about today. Today we're going to be talking about galaxy shapes. Yes, galaxy shapes. Something very strange, actually, because normally what we would have in the past is we would have a ring galaxy, we would have a spiral galaxy, or just a globular cluster. Now, the developers have sat down and thought by themselves, you know what, we can do better than this. We haven't really touched this at all since launch. It's been 6 years. Let's add some new galaxy shapes. And that's exactly what they've been talking about in the latest Dev Diary, in addition to a bunch of other things that are not really relevant to the current discussion. But yeah, currently we have a setup within the game where you can go with spiral galaxies that have multiple arms. But this is something that they want to expand upon. 2 arms, 4 arms, 8 arms. All of this stuff is completely viable, and it all has to do with how the galaxy is generated within the game. And they're looking to expand on that, as I've already mentioned. So what are some of the more interesting things that we can do here? Well, you have the classical bar galaxy. There is some suggestion that the Milky Way galaxy could be a 2-arm spiral, which allows for a whole bunch of very interesting scenarios. And as you can see on this particular setup is that there are in fact 2 arms. The real interesting part is that they are only connected through one hyperlane right down the middle. Now, there's a black hole there, and obviously it's not in the galactic core. I don't know why they never put anything in there, but there's a black hole right in the middle connecting everything. It'd be nice if it was a pulsar because of all the shield nullification that's going on there. But it kind of drops off the road between the 2 areas, which could make for some very interesting gameplay variety. Whoever controls the center controls the trade, they control the spikes. From a multiplayer setup, this could actually be really, really interesting. They should be able to work on even some of the smaller galaxies within the game. But yeah, a single hyperlane connecting these 2 areas is really, really interesting. Ring galaxies, of course, is something that exists as well, such as the Cartwheel, which is essentially 2 rings that are just looping into each other. It's essentially just a single stretch of galaxy that is just looping around itself, and it kind of has arms, but it's all interconnected, which can also allow for some very interesting gameplay variety, I would say. Also, obviously, it depends on how dense your hyperlane setup is, but overall, I think this could make for some very interesting gameplay. I will also point out that they've changed some of the background stuff here as well, the galactic dust, so to speak. We've got the Hedgehog Galaxy right here, which is basically an arm being removed from a spiral galaxy, where you end up with this weird setup with multiple arms, but one of the clusters of the galaxy is just completely missing. Again, a lot of isolinization in the map, a lot more interesting exploration stuff that can happen, because if you're in one part of the galaxy, you're not going to be able to get to another part of the galaxy relatively easily, even though it's, as the crow flies in space, is relatively close. You just need to go all the way around to get there, otherwise you're going to have to deal with intergalactic space. And then finally, they've come up with another interesting setup, which they refer to as the Starburst. Essentially, what this does is it generates several clusters that all connect down in the middle. Now, there have been some multiplayer maps that kind of dabble with this sort of idea, where there are areas that just all connect down in the middle, and then there's paths into every single section. And I can see empires really building themselves up in one of these side areas and then starting to leak into some of the other clusters. Very interesting from a combat point of view, but also from a development point of view. Where are you going to put your choke nodes? Where are you going to put your stations? How are you going to set up your development processes? Are you going to move all of your core worlds all the way towards the edge where it's relatively safe from incursion? Or are you going to have a cluster of, say, fortress worlds right at the front where you can stop any invasion? And of course, they become completely obsolete as soon as you've taken over another spread of space. But yeah, this idea has been played around with in mods for a couple of years already, and I'm really glad the developers are looking to add this. So yeah, overall, the galaxies being updated to more interesting scenarios, I think, is a really, really good idea from the developers, and it's good to see that they're taking these ideas from mods, or at least coming up by themselves, who knows what's going on there, and really running with it, which is really nice as well. Now, hyper relays, etc., are going to be really interesting in these sort of setups, so probably also very important, especially with this last galaxy, because you will kind of want to get that intergalactic road setting up. So yeah, that's really important. So yeah, what do you think? This is very, very interesting. What do you think this is going to do to your gameplay? Are you looking forward to play on one of these galaxy setups, one of these designs, or do you want something more? Apparently, some players were saying, hey, can I get a 3,000 star galaxy, with the developers immediately jumping on top of it saying, yeah, you could, but you will need at least half an hour of loading time if it's not optimized. So yeah, these sort of things. More galaxies, more ways to play, and of course, that Spiritualist Federation. Leave your comments below. I'm looking forward to see what you've got to say on this particular topic. Next week, I don't know. What are we going to be talking about next week? Let's have a quick look-see at the actual depth diary and see if there's anything at the bottom. It looks like we may actually be looking at some new Federation stuff, as already mentioned. So we'll see. In the meantime, though, if you want to see more of these videos or be updated on all of the Stellaris stuff, feel free to give this video a subscribe. We'll keep you updated on all the ins and outs of what's going on. Also, if you want to see some of the more interesting / fun content, feel free to check on this playlist right here. It's on your screen right now, and it will give you a couple of hours of fun to enjoy when it comes to horribly breaking the game. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to my patrons. And until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, each other.